Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
More Lou.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This might surprise you, but this is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Come on.
I'd love to hear it.
What's going on, Noah? John Zannis, Noa Dalzell from the Garden. Celtics fall to the Memphis Grizzlies. 127-121 in one of the weirder games I can remember. Weird for so many reasons, Noah, and I don't even know where to begin with it. Just so many of the stats, just the box score itself was bizarre. Jaylen Brown having like 5 shots through 3 quarters. Jrue Holiday being ignored, shooting 26 times, 17 threes. My goodness gracious. Porzingis injury scare. He comes back. Tatum, pretty much a mess all night. Nobody could shoot the ball at all. Just a weird game. Celtics go 18 for 60 from 3, including an NBA record 23 3-point attempts in the first quarter. And I don't know your overall assessment in this game. If I'm to put it in a nutshell, my nickel version of just the headline, Celtics just didn't have the legs tonight. They tried a little. It wasn't lack of effort. They just looked like a tired team. They were sloppy. Shots were short. They weren't hitting. And again, not to make excuses on the back-to-back, but when they did have that run where they were close in the fourth quarter and it looked like they might be able to kind of, adrenaline might push them over the top, there was nothing left. The way they closed out the game was pretty bad, both from an execution standpoint and a results standpoint. And they lose, and it happens, and you lose. Memphis is a good team. They played really well. John Morant played great. Jaren Jackson, I don't think has missed in 3 hours. He hit literally everything that he had. So just kind of pulling yourself back and looking at the game. Noah, what's your primary takeaway here?
Yeah, I think you captured it pretty well, John. That was one of the weirder games that I've ever watched, or at least recency bias is probably playing a factor here. Yeah. But just from the jump, you saw them pretty much ignore Jrue Holiday, who is coming off of a really good 3-point shooting season, has been solid, and it kind of worked for them. It threw the Celtics out of whack. He attempted 26 shots, which is way more than he's attempted any game this season, firing off from 3. I don't think that they were bad looks, but also it just threw everything else out of whack, like I said. And Jaylen attempting 5 shots through 3 quarters came alive in the fourth, but just a really bizarre, really bizarre kind of turn of events. I do think the legs thing is a real thing. And I have to just say, I'm interrupting myself here. Seeing the chat saying Noah wants Tatum out of town while I'm getting death threats from Bucks fans all day because yesterday I said Tatum is better than Giannis is quite fiery. But back on track here. Pritchard, I thought, was the only one that really had legs. And maybe it's because he didn't do much yesterday. Like he kind of
he was fresh.
Yeah.
It wasn't the legs, the elbow was fresh. He only took 3 shots yesterday. So this was ready to go,
And then the free throws down the stretch, I don't know what that is. We've seen it from time to time where an NBA team just loses the ability to shoot free throws. It's pretty fascinating when you see how contagious it is. It was Pritchard, it was Porzingis, it was Keita, it was Jaylen, it was guys that don't usually miss, but that really cost them down the stretch. They made 5 of their last 12 free throws. And so is that legs? Is that something else? I don't know. But that was an unusual thing for us to see from a Celtics team that's very consistent from the free throw line. So those are the things that stood out to me. Really bad Tatum game. Down the stretch, I thought that on both ends, he was struggling, made some bad defensive plays, made some bad offensive plays, coming off of a really phenomenal night last night. So, was it legs tired? I think last night was an emotional game. It was a game that they all kind of overexerted themselves, but maybe they were just due for one of these. It is a good Memphis team. I don't think they're not good. They're impressive. I thought John Morant had one of the best individual performances of any opposing player. So against the Celtics this year. So yeah, a lot we can break down, but I really thought it started with leaving Jrue Holiday wide open.
And it changed everything. It changed the game. It made it really weird because that's like, that's the kind of thing that like I might have short circuited Joe in terms of like what he's telling him to do. And he said it in the post game. We'll get some comments there too. But a short while ago, like, fine, do that again. We like it, and that's fine. And again, Holiday shot 43% from 3 last year. Amazingly, he was left open in the corners in the early part of the game, where last year he was lethal, best corner 3-point shooter in the NBA last year. and he wasn't really taking advantage of it this year. I know he's down to 36%, or at least I think was that entering this game. So yeah, he's not as consistent a 3-point shooter, but it's still a bit of a curious choice. And again, I guess it's a pick your poison with the Celtics team, and that's what they decided they wanted them to do. And you know that a Joe Mazzulla led team is not going to turn down open threes, and he'd be mad if Holiday didn't shoot those, quite frankly. He just has to make them. And, you saw Golden State do it with Jaylen Brown, and that led to like a 43-point beatdown in one of the more impressive games last year. But the logic is sound. I'm going to pick the guy who I think I would rather shoot than everybody else, try to take everybody else out of their flow and what they normally do, and put it on him. And if he beats me, he beats me. And so I can understand it, but I to this extent, and to continue it all game long, and for him to shoot that many times was really interesting. Because what do you do if you're Joe Mazzulla there? You see that it's happening. You see that it's not effective. Are you going to play like Noah? Would you keep playing the law of averages and say, man, if they give it to you, shoot it? And that's that. Or would you say, you know what, this is screwing up everything that we're trying to do here because nobody else is involved and our flow sucks. So maybe pass up the next couple and let's just keep cycling until we get something else. Like, what would you have done?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the beginning portion, you want to shoot through it, especially because he's such a capable shooter. I mean, Jaylen Brown had his famous game versus the Warriors last year due to a similar defense, and Jaylen Brown is a less consistent 3-point shooter than Jrue Holiday. But that made the Warriors look like fools. I mean, we all laughed about that game, and everybody talked about, why would you leave Jaylen Brown open? So this is the flip side of that. Yeah,
I didn't, because
No.
He's statistically the worst 3-point shooter on the team last year. If someone's going to shoot, I'd rather be him. Everyone else, Horford, Holiday last year, they're shooting in the 40s.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the old Celtics. They basically did. It's ironic that it's on a Marcus Smart game. They did what teams used to do to the Celtics when Marcus Smart was on the team, which is, I'm going to fool you into thinking you've got a good shot, but it's going to be that guy taking it. They just did it with Holiday, and it worked. But this is the classic thing that would happen when Marcus was here. Marcus, by the way, had a very Marcus stat line where, again, he took the shot. The Celtics let him take open shots, and he missed them as well, just not 17 of them. But that's not supposed to work against this team, and it's not supposed to work with a shooter like Holiday. So again, it seems sound to allow him to shoot it, but should Joe have tried something different?
I don't think so. I'm just seeing
Take him out of the corner.
Yeah, I'm seeing post-game Joe Mazzulla called the Grizzlies' decision to leave Jrue Holiday open as bold and risky, and said he's happy that the Celtics saw that so they can now learn from it. I thought that he didn't play down the stretch in the fourth quarter. We talked about this literally 2 days ago. This is a perfect example where Pritchard had it going.
Pritchard was better,
and he closed the game, and Jrue Holiday was on the bench. And we talked about whether or not they're comfortable with that. Clearly now they are. But do you tell him to stop shooting?
But that was the only way to stop it, right? It's like
right.
The only way to stop him from shooting open looks, which they want you to take, is just to take him out of the game, and that's what he had to do down the stretch there.
Yeah, but I think what's the quote that Joe gave a couple weeks ago? You trust you go by process, not by feeling. This is kind of an example of that. Like, you're not gonna your principle. What's the principle? Follow your principle, whatever it was. This is an example of them following the principle of shooting when you're open and shooting in rhythm and not doing that. The only thing is he did have some shots down the stretch where he was driving to the basket and kind of throwing some reckless, drives against Jaren Jackson, where I was like, okay, that's not even really, I almost feel like he was overcompensating a little bit for the fact that they were leaving him wide open. But that was the beginning of the problems. I don't want to put it all on that. That just set the tone, I think, for them. And if you're an opposing team, I understand why you're coming in with some gimmicky defense or trying something different than just being like, let's play our best defense with our personnel, because ultimately, it's really hard to stop the Celtics team. And we talked about how the math is not in your favor. And so what they did today changed their rhythm, changed their flow. And just the fact that we even have to have this conversation is, it means that they did something different that was worth maybe throwing the Celtics out of whack. So yeah, that did stand out though. And it clearly for tonight it worked. I don't think it would work in a 7-game series, especially when he's a little bit more rested. He is dealing with something too, I'll add. We talked to Machuda on yesterday. He's dealing with the knee stuff. It's not something he's dealt with before. A second night of a back-to-back. He had a big night last night. It's going to be, I think, with off of rest, maybe this wouldn't have happened too.
Yeah, and it's a brutal stretch. 5 out of 7, and you're looking at your veteran players here, and you had I'm going to call it a Porzingis scare. I almost had a heart attack. The entire season flashed before my eyes because it's the same leg, and he definitively just walked right to the locker room when it happened. And I mean, maybe I'm a doomer, and I don't mean to be, but I did not have him returning to the game and looking good in the second half and on my bingo card at all. I thought it was certainly out, and then us just holding our breath, waiting for test results coming back. Not to say they're not going to look at it. I thought that was bad. You're obviously without Horford tonight, and again, 5 out of 7. And Holiday, yeah, older, tired legs. Everybody's tired. Tatum looked like he didn't have fresh legs either. The whole team, I thought, looked like they were dragging. Definitely a bit, sloppy with the ball, trying to force the issue. I do think that, Memphis has that size as well. So they're always going to contest you in the paint. And when they did try to force the issue a little bit, didn't always go the way that they wanted it to go. So a difficult game throughout here. But again, I agree that the Holiday thing is really the story. But it's the second game in a row where the 3-point shot left them, and they gutted out that win yesterday. No, I thought today would have been the same caliber of win of finding a way. They just didn't have it. And if I'm going to really nitpick something, and it's difficult because I'm sitting here talking about the legs being an issue. I knew it. And I put it out maybe on Blue Sky too. I was like, I think Joe's waiting too long here to get Porzingis and Tatum in the game. I know he wanted to bring them in at about the 6-minute mark, and I know he needed them at that time to be fresh, but that's where the game went from. I believe it was, that was about a 10-0 run there from that 9-minute mark to the 6-minute mark where the Celtics were up 3 and they went down 6 or 7 by the time Porzingis and Tatum checked in. And that I think it was 103-99. And then it was 109-103 is where it was over that little stretch. And you could see it getting away from them. They weren't getting good looks. They were getting cooked inside. He was trying to force that Kata Cornet double big lineup there for maybe just a little bit too long. And they did get burned. But who's to say if they brought the starters back in earlier that they would have had enough gas to be able to get them all the way to the finish line?
And honestly, from what it looked like, they didn't have enough gas even with the rest that they did get,
Right. That's why I'm saying I'm not going to make a big deal because they looked exactly that. Yeah.
I think the reality was because when that lineup first came out in the fourth, I was like, in what world are Izumi Kata and Luke Cornett sharing the floor right now? Like, I was pretty shocked to see that, two non-shooting guys that we very rarely see together in such an important moment. But then I thought about it, and it's like they really didn't have many options because once Sam Hauser went down, which again we don't know much about that injury, but hopefully it's not anything long term. But I don't think he even came back to the bench in the second half. But once he went down. Al Horford's obviously not playing tonight. That's two of your really important spacers, two of your really important rotation players that can do a little bit of everything. And you lost them both, and they didn't want to go into Jordan Walsh or Drew Peterson or Baylor Shireman tonight. Like they Joe could have made that decision, and he's made that decision in recent weeks. We saw last week, Drew Peterson was getting 25 minutes a night for consecutive games, and he opted to go with the double big lineup. And maybe it would have been better off to just throw in one of the wings. Yeah. But for some reason, he didn't feel confident in doing so tonight. So that's really what it came down to. But his hand was a little bit forced here because they were down Hauser, which clearly wasn't the game plan.
Yeah, Hauser down with an adductor strain. That's like hip thigh sort of situation. Joe Mazzulla, not quite a medical update, but when asked about it, said after the game, Hauser is doing all right after exiting the game. Yeah. So not that. Let me see. Marcus Smart might have tipped out before Bobby got a chance to talk to him. Or anyone got a chance to talk to him. I can kind of understand why. And we'll get into Marcus Smart a little bit. But as we were talking about earlier, the story of the game was definitely Holiday here jacking away because that's what they let him do all game long. And we alluded to what Mazzulla, we paraphrased it a little bit, what he said about that. Here is Joe talking about the Memphis Grizzlies decision to just kind of let Holiday fire away.
Yeah, Jrue, it's a bold strategy. He's an all-star who shoots over 40% from three. I think that's a risky one. And I thought he handled it great. I mean, we empowered him. We want him to shoot any shot that he's open, and I think that's a huge gift because now we're going to see it again, and it's going to be great for us. So I'm really happy that they did that for us, and I thought the teammates did a great job empowering Jrue to shoot. Didn't make them all, but you move on. And but I'm glad that we saw that. And it's going to be good for us.
Back to the strategy on Jrue. Just, I know you're about empowering guys and making sure that they get good shots. But at one point, you have your finger on the pulse. You know when guys are doing well, not doing well. What point do you start considering adjustments on that?
We made an adjustment.
I'm just saying at one point, like when you start. I'm just saying for you philosophically, like when I'm not saying you didn't make any adjustments. I'm saying
no, I know. I'm saying we made the adjustment. The adjustment was keep shooting, and then. Peyton had a good third quarter, and then
That's
we
not
finished
an
with Peyton.
adjustment.
So, the most important
That's
thing
the
is having an understanding that we want Jrue to shoot every time he's open. We want him to be an aggressive player, and I'm really grateful that they did that on us tonight so that we have it and we can get better.
Double big, Nimi and Luke, hadn't seen that before. What kind of led you to go to that? And I know it got you back in the game, but they went on a 10-0 run after that. What kind of happened in the second half of that run?
Al was out and Sam got hurt.
Those two specifically, what do you kind of see out of them there that, made you think they could get you back in there?
We had 4 offensive rebounds, I think, in the first half, and then ended up with 15. So I think they gave us a little bit more, with the volume of our shooting, they gave us a little bit more of a crash rate in the second half, gave us some second chance opportunities. I thought they played, physical on both ends of the floor, and it forced them to change their matchups on us.
I didn't miss much in postgame.
Nope. Joe Mazzulla. I did everything right. Screw everyone. And look, Joe's competitive as hell. And that's, there's defiance there. Yeah, bold strategy. I hope to see it again. Like, I dare you to do that again. But, at the same time, when he's asked that adjustment question, he didn't want to say it because it would have been a shitty thing to do. But he's like, we made an adjustment. And the adjustment is I sat his ass down. But it would have been a crappy thing to say. So he pulled back a little. He said the adjustment was to let him keep shooting. And then Pritchard went in the game. But he did make an adjustment. His adjustment is he sat him down. Like, with Jrue, let's call it a night, buddy. It's over here. You don't have to do Bobby dirty like that. There's nothing he did wrong. But again, we just talked about it. That was the stretch right there, that 10-0 run where Memphis took the game back over and never looked back. That was it. So it was working for you. Joe might have been a little bit late to see it, or might have said, I just can't bring these other guys in because they're dog tired. You never really know, and there's no way. It's like baseball, Noah. Like, you don't know if you brought in the relief pitcher or you left in your starter, if the result would have necessarily been any different. But when you see it in hindsight, it's pretty easy to say that 10-0 run was where you lost the game there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, that was an interesting press conference snippet. I'm sure there was more, but that's exactly what I would expect from Joe after this kind of a loss. He's not going to start commiserating with us or ranting about the players but that, those are the two things that stood out from, if we were going to attribute like why they lost this game was, Jrue, the whole Jrue Holiday defensive scheme, and then that fourth quarter lineup was tough. And then honestly, like not to go too in on the coaching staff, because I think they have done a really good job with challenges and things, but they were down by 4 with 19 seconds to go, and then they actually had a chance to get the ball. And then because he called the timeout, they were able to challenge that. Memphis was able to actually look at that out of bounds call and challenge that play. Very unusual mistake for the Celtics to make. I think they pride themselves in kind of thinking through all those scenarios and calling a timeout when they need to, and not challenging something when they don't want to. So that was a little bit unusual, because when he called it, I was thinking to myself, like, I'm surprised they didn't just inbound the ball right away, and then you can call a timeout. But they called it while it was on the dead ball. So again, they were down by 4, so it wasn't like they were down by 1. It wasn't a 1-possession game, so it's not a huge deal. But it was just I was almost like, I feel like the coaching staff is tired from yesterday. Like, it seems like everybody was on a second night of a back-to-back, because that was just unusual to see to make that decision as well. So it was a little bit of an underwhelming game, honestly. There was a lot of juice around the Marcus Smart return, and he was kind of a non-factor. He didn't even have like quintessential moments. We were talking yesterday, like, is he going to be diving into people and things? He had one flop. Like, I was like, okay, we saw like a glimpse of Marcus Smart, one flop on Tatum driving, but other than that, it was really, he was invisible, I thought. Well, worse than invisible.
Yeah, he was, and I thought, and there was one time where he D'd up Tatum, and he did lock him up a little bit on one possession. That might be the only other thing that kind of stands out. But I also thought when he entered the fourth quarter, 1 for 10, 1 for 5, there with 3 points total. A classic quintessential Marcus Smart game. That's what his line looks like entering the fourth quarter. And then he hits 5 threes and makes 3 diving plays or 2 winning plays or whatever that is and does something. So I thought something was coming, but legit nothing was coming. And if I'm to believe what we're hearing from the Garden, he got out of there fast, and he didn't want to talk. But we did talk to him earlier. We're going to play a snippet of that too. And that he's still not super happy with the trade situation. He was pretty open about it today, talking to Bobby Manning, who was at Memphis Grizzlies shoot-around. So we will get into that as well, and we'll keep fielding your comments here in the chat and respond to stuff if you guys have anything that you want to talk about. But while we wait on all of that, we're going to tell you quickly about a couple of our sponsors here on the Garden Report. And we're going to start with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. We know home-cooked meals are much better for you. You don't always have the time to put in. HelloFresh handling meal planning, shopping, most of the prep. That's the best part, is it all comes pre-portioned. Easier than ever to get dinner on the table. It's a great time of year, too, because you're stuck between that Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday. Nobody wants to be making big meals every single night. You just want to survive these few weeks and get to the holidays. And HelloFresh can help you do that. Always new flavors to explore with ever-changing menu of 50 recipes to choose from every week. You can go heart healthy, fit and wholesome, vegetarian, quick and easy, family friendly, whatever you want. Customize your meals by swapping out proteins and veggies so they're exactly what you want to do. And if you sign up today and get your first box, you will get free breakfast for life. That means 1 breakfast item in every box every time you order. If you go today and order at HelloFresh.com/freegarden. Once again, that is HelloFresh.com/freegarden. 1 free breakfast item for life. Again, America's #1 meal kit. Get in on some of that today. We've all tried it. We all love it. You should try it too. We also want to tell you about Bilt, and all of you out there paying rent, and we know many of you are going to thank me after I tell you about Bilt and Bilt Rewards. And if you're going to be paying rent, why not earn points while doing it? You can basically earn points that you can use towards everyday spending, all sorts of different things. Bilt is aligned with 500 airlines, 700,000 hotels and properties. You can redeem your Bilt points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment, a unique experience that only Bilt members can access. So if you're not earning points on your rent right now, my question is, why not? Go right now to joinbilt.com/garden. That's joinbilt.com/garden. Make sure to use that URL so they know that we sent you. Once again, joinbilt.com/garden to start earning points on your rent payments today. Noah, I'll get back to it. I am, I forgot to put this up. I got to show you guys. That's Bilt right there. If you want to see it once again, sorry, we had the HelloFresh lower third up there on the screen. Joinbilt.com.
Okay, John, second item back-to-back for all of us.
I know. But I'm flying blind. It's hard to produce and host at the same time. Nobody wants to hear me complain about it, but it's a lot. It's a lot, Noah. I'm not on my game. It's not missing 17 threes. I didn't do that. But anyway, so there it is. Joinbilt.com/garden. Noah's right. Second night of a back-to-back is tough for everybody. As far as the Marcus Smart experience goes, I hate shoveling dirt on top of the Marcus Smart thing, but I have a hard time having a conversation about Marcus Smart without having the same conversation I've always had about Marcus Smart, which is there's a reason you see stat lines like this from him. Is he's an inefficient scorer, and he always has been. And I think that was always one of the hangups Celtics fans had, is sometimes there was just too much Marcus, and sometimes you'd have nights like this mixed in with nights where he did literally a little bit of everything and was your heart and soul and best player on the floor. But I do feel bad for the situation that he's in coming back in here, and I feel bad for him being shipped out of town and then winning a championship after he'd spent all of this time here. And earlier today, I know, there was a lot of interest, and a bunch of Celtics reporters went to shoot around. Did you go to shoot around as well today?
I wasn't a shoot around, no.
No. And he did talk about how the trade went down, and he's kind of, echoed some of the things he'd said before, but he's still definitely thinking about it. Hold on. I'm trying to put it on stage.
I mean, I still look at it the way that I looked at it when it happened, It's a great trade, business-wise. I just wish, would have went about it a little bit differently, just letting me know. That way I wasn't just, blindsided, and I could have prepared for it and got my family ready. But like I said, business-wise, it's a great business move. I would have made the move, and I think anybody probably would have. So, you tip your cap off to those guys. I'm very happy for them. I'm proud that they were able to go and, win it. Like I said before, I've been on the court with those guys. I put the work in with those guys. So I know what they sacrificed, and I'm proud to see those guys finally, getting what they deserve and, the hard work that they put in.
So again, not big mad,
sad.
but he seems sad. He's not mad, but he seems a little sad, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to be honest about something like that. Like, the pain's never gonna go away. You were with this team for years, and then you get traded, and then they win a championship. Like, I would be salty about it for the rest of my life. I'd be thinking about it in my 80s. Like, I'm sad that happened, and especially the way that it did. The reality is, this is how NBA trades literally always are. Like, nobody really ever gets a heads up. You occasionally maybe get a few minutes, but that's what you just hear from around the league. Jrue Holiday, that's just the way the stories go. But it is, I totally understand why somebody would feel salty about it. I saw him talking to like Mike Zarin, the assistant general manager, all the Celtics team personnel before the game, and I don't think he's carrying like outward hard feelings. But that it didn't surprise me that he was holding that view. Whereas like Malcolm Brogdon, just kind of when he was asked about it by Bobby earlier this season, he was just ready to. He really didn't have any hard feelings about it at all anymore. And that just makes sense considering the circumstances.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Again, I think it's a perfectly well-reasoned answer, and no problem with players feeling the way that they feel. Of course, you'd like the heads up because it's a courtesy, but it's impossible to do it because when these trades don't go down, or if you are shopping somebody, you can't tell them you're shopping them because that's going to affect your relationship forever. So the teams are really hamstrung there. Look at the Jaylen Brown situation from a couple years ago when he was clearly bothered, and there was a question whether he's on the move, and he does a couple of national magazine interviews and talking about airing his grievances and calling up Brad and say, what the hell's going on here? So like, that's not something you want out there. It's not something you want to communicate to players because you risk losing them. If they know you're constantly shopping them for something better, that's going to affect how they view the organization, particularly a player like Jaylen who was about to re-sign here. So it's just not something that's in the cards, but it is what it is. We're going to bring Bobby on in a minute, but we're going to go back to the Jrue Holiday thing because we did get a chance to talk about him. And again, really weird game for those who didn't see all of it. The Grizzlies decided to leave Jrue Holiday all alone, and he did not make the most of his opportunities. 8 for 26 field goals, 4 for 17 3-pointers, and he got benched in the fourth quarter because he just simply wasn't effective. He wasn't great defensively either, and that's a separate question altogether. But Mazzulla said, "Hey, bring it on." Here's Holiday talking about how things went for him.
Guard that they were going to let you shoot?
It didn't catch me off guard. I feel like every team lets me shoot. Even yesterday. Obviously, you got Jason and Jaylen and people getting to the paint. I'm usually the recipient of that. But tonight, some of them went in, some of them didn't.
It was the most shots you've ever taken in a first half. How different did that feel compared to your role most nights?
A little different, but you got to keep on shooting. I'm too wide open not to. So. I honestly kind of liked it. It's been a while since I've been shooting that much. Just got to see one going and two going, and then from there, the floodgates will happen. But I'll continue to shoot.
Did it take you kind of a minute to adjust to that, the way that they were playing you?
Nah, I saw it right away. I mean, Jaren Jackson was all the way in the paint and leaving my wide open. But every shot to me felt good. Just sometimes you got to see it going.
You broke your career high in threes early in the third quarter. You took 14, like your career high was 13 previous. Did you notice, like, damn, I'm shooting a lot? Like, what kind of, because you don't count your stats, but you got to notice, like, damn, I'm getting them up.
I mean, yeah, I'm getting them up. They're literally dropping all the way in the paint, and I'm wide open. So, yeah, I knew they'll shoot it. But again, I don't see it as an issue. Some games you shoot it well, some games you don't. Today wasn't the best day for me, but I'll keep shooting.
So we'll bring in Bobby Manning. And guys, while I don't think Jrue Holiday shooting open threes is an issue, because I think you trust him to do that, I'm going to ask you whether this is an issue. Celtics are 13th in the league in three-point percentage this year. They're still number one by a considerable margin in makes, which is, I think, over 19 makes per game. The next closest is 16 point something. But the Celtics, after tonight, fall to 13th in the league. And if you eliminate game one, they're going to be a good bit lower there, too. So outside of the first game of the season, they've been a dead mid three-point shooting team percentage-wise. Of course, at the volume they're shooting it, they're still effective. But that's different than last year, where they shot it at a much more efficient clip. At what point are you concerned about that number?
Not totally concerned, given the success they've had to this point. And yeah, just yesterday they moved to 6-0 and they shoot below 33% from three,
which is
team.
amazing.
So,
yeah,
yeah,
which also kind of might tell you they don't necessarily need to at the insane volume that they are. I'm not trying to go Gary Washburn here. I'm just wondering, is it possible it's gone a shade too far to the point that they're taking themselves out of other things they do? Because I didn't love how they got a lot of their threes early. This felt like the second night of a back-to-back. I'm going to jack the first open shot I see, whether or not, without earning it. They weren't getting paint touches. They were just kind of bombs away, which isn't always the case. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, and a lot changes about your team. I'm sure you talked about the impact of No Horford in this game and how's it going out. It's astonishing. We've talked about it a lot this week, how when he's good and he's there, it's one thing. And when he's not, it's a totally different thing. And then to be missing both of them in this situation completely threw them off to the point where I thought that was one of Joe's worst decisions of the year, putting the two bigs out there together. I don't know why they did that.
You tried to ask it.
Yeah, I worked it first, but
you're
doing
the Lord's work, Bobby. I'll tell you that. You keep doing it.
It fell apart quickly, right? They gave up a 10-0 run. Jackson's attacking those guys offensively. It doesn't make it. I get it's a desperate situation and guys are going out and all of that, but it was weird even for Joe to go in that direction, because if you're going to be relying on spacing and threes and all that, I know there's other ways to space, but it's not a look you have in your arsenal, right? So they tried something outside the box there. It worked at first. It fell apart. It's not a huge deal. This loss at the end of the day isn't a ginormous deal, but it does raise some good questions, John, like you said, about the amount of threes they're taking to start this year. I don't know if they expected it to go in this direction, but it did. So from this point on, do you change your shot profile a little bit? We're still relatively early in Porzingis' return. Does he start to get you more looks closer to the basket? And of course, Jaylen in this game tried to generate those, and he just said moments ago, like, he was out of control in this one, and that was another reason that they were just off kilter in this game. They had to play a different way in this game than they're used to in a number of different ways. And it just seemed to throw everybody for a loop. And I'll credit them for staying in the game. And that's something Jaylen said too, like 5th game in 7 days, schedule being wacky this week. They were right there in the end against a great team. We talked about it. Memphis is one of those small handful of teams that could win it all this year. But they just ended up falling short late. And, a few mistakes in some key spots ended up costing them this one, because they did have, a 6-point lead at one point in the fourth. They had a lead of some amount early in the quarter and then squandered it pretty quickly. So the Grizzlies played amazing in this game. The game plan was great. The performances across the board, the rotations, it was all stellar. That was really impressive to watch.
Yeah, especially some of the shot making late, particularly Jaren Jackson, who just kept taking it to him. And even when they started forcing him to his right, I know he's more comfortable going left, he was still hitting those. I think he hit like 4 floaters in the fourth quarter or whatever. So it was pretty impressive there, where they executed, the Celtics did not on this.
And he hit one over Brown, hit one over Porzingis, hit one over White.
Everybody.
He was going at everybody.
Everybody. And the lead, I believe, got to 4, and it was that 10-0 run there, Bobby, that where it got away from them. And I said it earlier to Noah too. I could feel it. Like I was like, he's waiting. He's trying to hold off as long as possible, but I think Joe's waiting a little too long to pull the plug on that lineup and get Tatum and Porzingis in there. And 10-0 run, boom, they go from up 4 to down 6, and that was kind of, they were battling the rest of the way, and they still had shots, they had looks, they had opportunities. Like, it was still there. They were fighting for real. Like, this wasn't a throw your hands up and give up. It was just a sloppy mess of a game, but they were fighting. They were fighting the whole way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something else. And not to pull a Joe here, but I will flip it. They've allowed a lot of threes recently in terms of percentage, right? They're not giving up a ton of attempts to their opposing teams, but their opponents are starting to hit a lot of threes against them. The Pistons did the other night. In this game, the Grizzlies were able to shoot 45%. Again, they shot like almost half as many as the Celtics here, but they took advantage of all of them. And, Ja going a little crazy after coming in, 26%, 27% for the season was a big part of this. Bane had a couple. Jackson, of course, had the huge one in the fourth. And these aren't great three-point shooters, Bane aside. So this was a weird game, not to just throw it out. Like, the Grizzlies did some amazing stuff here and were prepared and had a great game plan. But this was weird. And I do think the three-point shooting going against them, we always talk about that, John, right? Like, your defense gets hit by like some uncharacteristic three-point shooting, and that can swing your defense a little bit. I do think that's happened over the last couple of games here to some degree, but that's coming in tandem with them going cold in a couple of different situations. Second quarter yesterday, they overcame that. This game, right from the jump. And the first quarter, I felt like, is where they got in trouble just jacking too many. And they got away from that a little bit midway through the game, right? Going inside more. Tatum, I think.
You could tell there was one timeout. There was one timeout, and then they came back out there, and then the next 3 possessions went into the paint. So I think Joe was like, guys, come on. Like, you got to work for it. You almost wonder sometimes, like, do you have to play it like you like when you're coaching a youth team where you're like, I'm coaching like 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds. It's like, you got to pass 3 times before somebody shoots. Like, in some cases you wonder, it's like, you got to get a paint touch before the first 3 goes up, like, just make sure we're going through our process as opposed to just, because I think they got away from them a little bit tonight, but you have to rewatch and see. But it did feel like a lot of those, particularly in the first quarter, were just launching them.
Yeah, and that's the Jrue thing. We can go back to that because it is such a big deal here. I know Joe's excited about it, and I get it, right? He's a good three-point shooter, and if you're going to give him those in droves, it's like the Jaylen thing last year, and this game could have gone in that direction if, you hit a bunch of them. It is intriguing, right? Teams are going to watch that. People are going to look up around the league and be like, ooh, should we try this too? And it's going to happen over and over again.
If you look at the lineup, and again, so the Holiday, for what it's worth, statistically, he's been at around 40% for the last 3-4 seasons. So it's not something where, he flashed one year. But he's down to 34% after tonight's game. Jaylen Brown has been at, in the low 30s all year long. Again, you're talking about picking your poison and how would you defend the Celtics. We've said, no, maybe they should just leave Tatum. You let him play one-on-one, don't help there, and then just see if you can force him into some contested shots as opposed to helping off and getting in rotation. Maybe this is another way you're looking at the Celtics, and I think some teams are looking for different hacks here. I'll give Jaylen and Jrue every shot they want. And if they beat me, they beat me, but I'll give them every 3-pointer they want. I'm not going to let anybody else do it. Maybe that's a direction that some teams decide to go, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it gets repeated, but I think other teams will try it.
Other teams will definitely try it because they need something. But I also thought that Jrue made a good point post game in that he's oftentimes left open. Like, this was extreme, but he's also like the reason that why he's worked so well on the Celtics team is that he's hit those open shots. And I do think Water will find his level. I don't think he's going to finish the year shooting 34% from 3 as he is currently shooting.
Agreed.
There's a big enough sample there that we know that. And we also know that he's been dealing with something that I think has hampered him a little bit. But I would feel comfortable with a team leaving him open the way that Memphis did tonight for a larger stretch, because ultimately, like, he shot below average. He makes a couple more of those shots. It's an okay stat line. Like, it's really, and also just to be fair to him, like, what did he finish? 8 of 26. we've seen Jaylen and Jason have that stat line many times. I think it was just unusual to see him be the one to throw that up, but it is just like that's just the reality of being a basketball player sometimes too. Jaylen, honestly, like he's been a much less consistent three-point shooter over the last few years. So when the Warriors did it, like had that worked, maybe that would have started something. But because it burned them so bad, I don't think anybody wanted to copy it.
Yeah, again, even back then, no, I said it was sound. Like they weren't wrong, and everyone's like, "That was so stupid," and I don't think so. It was a sound strategy. It just didn't work.
You have to do it to someone, right? And it's been Horford most of the time. So usually he's wide open out there. Tatum's picking and popping to him. Maybe it just happened to Jrue tonight by coincidence with Horford being out. They had to play off someone, and he ended up being the guy in this one. So, looking at the numbers for the season, Horford does lead them in wide open threes, and he's shooting 42 on them. Pritchard's gotten a ton. We've talked about teams curiously leaving him open at spots, and he's 39. White's 39. And then Jrue, who's shooting 2 a game, is down at 36 after tonight. Those are on the wide open ones. We go to open, and it's Tatum generating a bunch for himself, White getting a bunch, and Holiday taking 2 a game, 35%. So you look at the numbers, he's like 36% on open threes this year, and I don't know if the Grizzlies pulled that up and said, "Oh, we should try this," or it's only 4 attempts a game that he's getting from that spot. So, I don't agree that he's shooting a ton of wide open threes every night. He's not getting many shots, and I think like more important than putting the ball into his hands and making him shoot those, you just generally make him do a lot in this game, right? He's not a guy like it kind of blew my mind. You look up in this game and it's like, oh, he's shooting all these shots. He's, in all these actions defensively, because more often than not, he hasn't had to do a ton. Like there's games where he just shoots like 6, 7, 8 shots and, he'll hit 2, 3, 4 of them. And it's like, oh, he did his job tonight. To have him up at 18 shots at halftime was mind-blowing, and all of a sudden you're like pulling up the numbers and you're like, oh, is Jrue shooting as well this year? Because more normally you're just not thinking too much about him. You're just like, he's doing his job, he's over there, he doesn't have to do a ton on this team, and it's amazing, right? That's all we've said, even in our conversations earlier this week. And all of a sudden, for him to be like a focal point offensively, and he's generating shots, and it's just massive volume. And like Noah said, maybe dealing with some stuff, maybe a little fatigued with the minutes or whatever it is. It just put them in a different spot, because that hasn't been his job on the Celtics, right? His job's been the defensive quarterback, shoot here or there, sneak in because no one's noticing you on offensive rebound. But in this game, he had to take a ton of shots. He had to do a lot of work on defense too, and it was just different, right? It just felt like it made them all a little bit more uncomfortable.
Yep.
Bobby, you were in there for Jaylen's postgame?
Yep.
Did he explain at all what his mindset was kind of with the 5 shot attempts through 3 quarters? And then obviously was like, oh, I'm more aggressive in the fourth, because that was also bizarre. It almost felt like Jrue Holiday shot attempts were coming, or not like necessarily it was, but Jaylen really wasn't involved offensively. He turned the ball over a couple of times, but he really wasn't doing anything. And I felt like they really could have used him. So I'm curious if he kind of spoke on that at all.
Yeah, he got asked about that, and he said, it's not going to be predetermined shot amounts. You're just playing basketball and getting it to that guy who's open over and over again. So, yeah, I think that came directly as a consequence of Holiday shot total in this game. And, that's part of the thinking, John, right? You're shifting shots away from those guys to Holiday.
I got him. Let's hear from Jaylen. We have some post-game commentary here from Brown on kind of Celtics, uneven effort.
It's a tough game and a back-to-back. Give credit to Memphis. They pressured us. They were physical, and the refs let it go. So, credit to Memphis. We wasn't strong enough with the basketball. I wasn't. I was way too casual. And that's my fault. Too many turnovers. We got to be better than that. But I give credit to Memphis. Like I said, they knew that we played last night, and they just upped the pressure, and we didn't meet the level that we needed. Yeah, probably teams will probably try, and I hope so. Like we got full belief in Jrue. Tonight maybe he didn't shoot the ball as much as he liked, but we got full belief in Jrue and any of those guys, and we're gonna encourage it. So yeah, we'll be ready if teams do decide that.
Yeah, I want to shoot, but also I'm not getting as many shots as I should.
Yeah, it's basketball. I mean, it's no determinants of how many shots I should shoot going into every night. You know, obviously I like to be involved in all the actions and stuff like that, but you know, on a team like this, you know, I don't mind being a distributor and setting guys up, you know, and I feel like I did that a lot. I just was too, you know, sloppy with the basketball tonight, which was, you know, not good. I'll clean that up.
So there's Jaylen Brown. Some of the stuff that you just alluded to, Bobby, Noah had asked you about, and then just some other things. And I think that that's a very, very strong assessment. What a weird night by Jaylen Brown. He looked out of sync. He wasn't shooting early, sloppy as hell, just turning the ball over, and then just starts making ridiculously difficult shots. Contested fallaways, 3-pointers when other people weren't hitting, and ended up with an insanely efficient offensive night, 10 of 14 field goals. Then he's, to go with that, he's got the 5 turnovers. So again, what Noah and I were talking about off the top of the show, just a bizarre game all around with everything that we saw there. We'll talk a little bit more about it. And Bobby, we did talk Marcus as well, but you were there. I'll give you a chance to discuss what you saw from him. Also, real quick, we want to tell you guys about a couple more of our sponsors, and we will, of course, start with Prize Picks. Best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members, billions of dollars awarded in winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible. Pick more, pick less. 2 players, a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. And again, you see the code on the screen. That's all you have to do. If you sign up today for new users, you get you play a $5 lineup. You're going to get 50 instantly as soon as you play it. You do not have to win. Once again, use the code CLNS after you download the app. Get 50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. It's that easy. So again, check it out. Super fun. Lots of great features as well that you can get involved with. Taco Tuesday, Flex Friday. Very fun, very intuitive. You can cross sports. You do whatever you want to do with it, but it's a lot of fun to play. So check it out. Prize Picks, as we said, there's the offer on the screen. Promo code CLNS for new users. Play 5, get 50 instantly when you sign up. Also, Game Time. You want to check it out. Go see some of your favorite teams in action. Go check out the Celtics, check out the Patriots, what have you. Check out Juan Soto and the Red Sox next season. Yeah, that's going to be a hot ticket. Concerts, doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. Game Time is the place to get tickets to the event or the game that you want to see. Download the app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Terrific features. Really, really easy to use app. You have all-in pricing, so there's no hidden fees. Panoramic views from your seat, so you know exactly what the view is going to be when you do decide to press purchase on your tickets. So as we said, download that Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms, as I said, do apply. Bobby, we talked about Marcus. We played the sound that you got earlier. We were predicting there'd be something. We were kind of all excited yesterday talking about it. Like, let's see what Marcus does. Let's see the reception. Let's see him make some Marcus Smart plays. Let's see if he mixes it up with any of the Celtics. And we just got a sad Marcus press conference before the game and a sad Marcus effort during the game and not much else.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how quickly the story of this game just dove beneath the surface and disappeared. He had that 6-minute stretch, goes 0-5, and then it felt like they just stashed him away for pretty much the rest of the game. Like, they didn't want him too involved or on the floor all that much the rest of the way, and I understand it. Jake LaRavia gave them some great minutes at the wing there, and Pippen, I think, has been a revelation for them in a backup point guard role and had a go-ahead shot in this game in the fourth quarter. So for this to have that eruption early and all these fireworks around it, and you're thinking it's going to be one of those revenge games, and then it to turn into this, it was disappointing. And emblematic of some shooting supposed to start this year, definitely. He's moved to the bench now. This is his 9th game in a row coming off the bench. So you wonder how involved he's going to be the rest of the way there, given that they have some other guys and they like that starting lineup now with the rookie there, Wells. So it was disappointing, definitely. But even like during that opening stretch where they gave him a little leeway, he had the ball in his hands a little bit, tried to go at Tatum on that shot, didn't work. didn't get any good looks from there. Kata blocked him, and all of a sudden he was just out of the mix. And wasn't even, was there even like a smart play in this game? I don't think so. So he didn't get many opportunities.
There was the one play where Tatum was dribbling up the floor and kind of used his arm as he tends to, and then Marcus like dove on the ground and like slid like 5 feet. And I was like, okay, that was like the only time that I remembered that Marcus was really in the game, because I thought there was going to be fouls and dives, and we were talking yesterday, like, is there going to be some crazy play that we're discussing? Like, there was none of that. He really didn't play a factor here.
He defended Porzingis a couple times too, which threw back to that Knicks game way back when he did that, and I thought had some similar success there. But again, just completely underwhelming in terms of that being a storyline here, John. There's really not even much to talk about. He didn't talk after the game either, just kind of got right up out of here. And they'll see them again. Who knows? Maybe you see them in June. I think that's certainly in play here, given how good they look, but definitely wasn't a big story tonight. Muted.
What could have been a huge story, Kristaps Porzingis leaving early in the first half. While it looked like he aggravated the same foot or ankle, he had really rare surgery off of a really rare injury, which nobody knew what he would look like coming back, or even if he would heal or how that was going to go. And then he hurts it, and everybody gasps and stops. And I thought
didn't look good either.
It didn't look good, and he goes right to the locker room, and oh my God, Bobby, I thought it was over. And then he comes back out in the second half. Any updates there? And then he, and so he
I
looks
caught
fine.
The tail end. I caught the tail
updates?
end of his locker room talk. He said he's all right. I don't know what that means. We'll see where it goes from here, but he did turn it pretty well. Looked like when he came back on the floor, it was one of those things like tighten it up, just play through it, gut through it. And, they're going to be off till Thursday, obviously, here. So there's a handful of days that he's going to be able to just get off his feet. And I'm sure it's just a normal ankle sprain, going to deal with whatever after effect there is to that. But I do love how good he looked. And one, he got up there, elevated, a couple big plays. He hit the 2 threes right away to start the fourth. So I was pleasantly surprised by how good he looked. But that's how it goes with the ankle sprain, right? You play through it that night, and then you're screwed for a couple of days at the very least.
Do we know for sure it's an ankle sprain? Like, that's confirmed?
Looked like it. I don't know what else it would be.
I don't know.
With him, it's like re-aggravation of his weird injury.
Yeah, like there's body parts that he can find to injure that I've never heard of.
All those teeny little bones in the foot.
Obviously, if it's an ankle sprain, it's an ankle sprain. I'm not overly concerned about it. But just because he can sometimes be weird, like I didn't know if there was a chance that maybe he checked back into the game, but there's still something that needs to be assessed further. But it was a good sign, obviously, to see him come out in the second. He was never on the injury report. The Celtics never listed him as such. So probably a dodged a situation there. But it is concerning.
You never know. You truly never know.
It is a little concerning, though. Every time you go back to watch these replays where he gets hurt, it's never anything where it's contact. It's always like an awkward move that he's not even moving that fast in. Like, it just feels so unavoidable, even if he wanted to play safe. Like, it just seems that there's no way to really avoid those motions. I mean, how many times have we gone back and rewatched those? So it definitely was a reminder that he remains injury prone, but I think we might have dodged one here.
Yeah, and I don't know about the after effects of the injury there, John. Again, I didn't think there was a huge concern of re-injury there, but given that's the same area, definitely is something to watch.
Nobody seems to know really anything there. Sam Hauser also left. This was not the back that's been plaguing him. This is adductor tightness, which is like kind of leg, hip situation here, thigh. Any updates there, Bobby?
Yeah, he told Joe that he's all right, so we'll see how that goes. But they've missed him. They've missed him badly when he's been out this year. I thought they missed him immensely after he went out in this game. And it just exposes, I know we love the Peterson thing for a couple games. They obviously didn't feel comfortable going back to that tonight. And Horford's out in this game, so you'd obviously be going double big with Horford if he was there. But when both those guys are out and you're going K to Cornet late in a game like this, it does expose, you don't have the greatest wing depth right here. The way Walsh has played, Peterson probably not being ready for big moments if they're going to try to work him into that role eventually. So it did make me think after the game, they don't have a ton of roster flexibility. They obviously don't have a ton to give up here. So there's not going to be like a major wing coming in the door. But they do have to look out there and be like, all right, who's someone who can maybe fill a few minutes here or there? Similar to Tillman last year at that big man spot. He's obviously another guy in that role that just hasn't worked out so far this year. I think that, using that Springer contract, which obviously we've talked about a million times, they're going to have to look at what they can do there. And it's a decent amount of money. They have seconds and firsts, maybe if they want to get super aggressive. But you look at this, and I know 2 injuries is extreme, but you lose a Horford or a Hauser even for a game or 2 in the playoffs, and all of a sudden you have to play Kata, Cornette. That's not great. So again, it'd have to be an emergency for you to end up in that situation, and they still almost worked through it tonight. But it throws their rotation off big time when even Hauser's not out there, and all you have off the bench scoring wise at that point is Pritchard. So there are some bench questions that have emerged to start this year. Muted.
Oh, you're muted, John.
I'm muted again. Let's see what happens here with the injuries, but hopefully they avoided anything serious here. Other closing thoughts from this game? No, anything we left on the table?
No, I'll just give my usual Pritchard shout out. I thought that if they won this game, he was
did
going
it.
to be a big part of it. He did, yeah.
No, we didn't talk about Pritchard.
We didn't talk, yeah. And I didn't want to be the
bounce
one,
back.
It's
a good bounce back.
Good bounce
You know what
back,
though?
and
They
now-
lost him late. He needed the ball a couple of times. Like I don't know if he
Because Tatum
left.
won't give him the ball. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
he won't. When the Jays are in there, they don't give. Like that's the problem, and it's not their fault. But they're the Jays. Like they're all NBA players. They're not deferring to Pritchard, but that you neutralize him when he's out there with those guys. That's part of the problem. Is he almost needs to be at least the secondary scoring option in a lineup. If he's the 3rd or 4th guy, they're not going to give him the ball and let him dribble around and be Peyton Pritchard. It's just not how the offense is going to run. So I think that takes something away when he's in those closing lineups. He can't be as effective.
So he was in the game.
Am I wrong, Noah? Am I wrong? You're not going to just give him the ball and let him go.
He was in the game the last 8 minutes though, and he had 0 shots.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal, especially because he obviously had the hot hand that was very hard to come by in this game. So, yeah, you would have wanted to look for more. I do find, he obviously thrives when he's the primary ball handler on the floor and the primary shot creator, and he wasn't in that last stretch. So maybe there's something to go back and look at. Then maybe that with alongside both of them, like it's not very often that he's playing alongside both Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I'd be curious what his numbers look like in those situations. We can look at that lineup data later, but I would imagine that does impact him quite a bit. But even so, sometimes when we have these games where, again, they lost by a possession or 2, I think about, like, what would we have spent this show talking about had they won? And we would have talked about Jaylen's big 4th quarter, how he came out of a really tough 3 quarters and really was huge there. KP had his big 3rd after we weren't sure if he was going to be able to play in the second half. And then Pritchard got hot, and he was really their only efficient shooter for most of these games. So, I guess it is funny because they have been hanging in there every single game. That there's never been a game where it's like they just got crushed or they were totally out of it. Like every single one of these games, there's almost the story of how they won, and then obviously a couple of these games they've lost. They've been in every single one. So
even when they're playing bad, I mean, Jason Tatum had a horrible offensive game, and again, a lot of settling, but it's also like, well, he's 1 assist short of a triple-double, so it's not like he's not making contributions, but offensively, he couldn't get anything going at all either. Jaylen Brown was, like I said, a really weird game, so a weird game all told, and I'm
Jackson
thrilled.
was devastating defensively in the paint.
Yeah, he was. I'm thrilled that they have this stretch here and some days off because they could use them, and again, I'm firmly on the side of heavy load management with these guys. I'd be sitting anytime you have stretches of 4 out of 6 or anything like that. I'd be sitting guys left and right because the wins and losses do not matter for this team during the regular season, but keeping these guys fresh and keeping them healthy does. So anybody's anybody's battling a little bit of anything, sit, chill, rest. I don't like how many people are grabbing their knees all the time. I don't like Tatum with these massive
in this
braces
game too,
around
right?
his legs. White took like 40 spills. He's like an old man getting up from
he was back on the injury report today.
Yeah. I don't like
I think there's a lot of ongoing injuries, and there always are, but it's not that late in the season. Jaylen doesn't sit a lot of times when he's on the bench now. He's constantly stretching his hips. So that hip strain that took him out of a couple of games earlier this season, he's obviously still dealing with it. Tatum, I don't think that was a made-up injury that kept him out of that game, like with a knee. White, I felt like I thought that he got seriously hurt like 3 or 4 times today because he normally gets up so quickly when he's hurt, and he fell and would just kind of lay there a couple of times. And I don't think he'd be on the injury report if there wasn't something going on. So it's probably, it doesn't help that it's a back-to-back. It doesn't help that there's a number of guys dealing with things. And they're going to really benefit from a couple of days of rest here. I think they don't play till Thursday, right? So it's a pretty substantial break for no good reason, really, except for the cup.
Yep, they're giving them Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off, so they won't be back at practice until Wednesday.
Good.
Oh, really?
Good. Let's do that. Let's all take a break. We're tired. I'm making mistakes. Noah's mic isn't working.
I don't know what happened. It's gonna kill me.
We're all okay, but it's a back-to-back for all of us, and it's a Saturday night, so we are happy that you guys got to hang out with us and watch the game. It wasn't a horrible game, but Celtics just couldn't do it when it mattered at the end, and down the stretch they kind of lost it there, and they fall to Memphis 127-121 in a really weird game. We'll see what the after effects are, whether it be injuries or strategies with the Celtics now, this whole let's leave people open thing, and see if that's something other people do and try to repeat the success that the Grizzlies had tonight. Celtics to a man, every single person, whether we played it on the show or I was following along on Twitter, said, yeah, leave them open. I friggin' dare you. So we'll see what happens next game. I'm kind of curious to see how other teams play it going forward. But as we said, few days off here, and we're going to get fresh and rejuvenated, and see you guys back on Thursday. Who's the opponent?
Detroit.
Yes,
Enjoy.
Detroit and Washington.
It could have been the Knicks. Could have been the Knicks, but enjoy the Detroit Pistons.
I will enjoy it. And that's that. And so I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you again to Noah for hopping on right away here with a shorthanded Garden Report crew. Bobby Manning as well. Jackson Tolliver down there as the producer and our videographer, as well as Rich LeMay.
By the way,
Ahmet, his presence is made no matter what. Even on days I try to get him not to work, this guy pops into the window here and starts doing stuff. Go, leave us alone, Ahmet. Go have a drink, do something. What's up, Bobby?
John, I got a quick question for you. Was that the best dunk you've seen at TD Garden?
I don't know.
It's the best dunk I've seen in person, I think.
Yeah. You guys
in
think?
a real game? I think so.
I don't think that's a close second
too.
either. I can't think of one.
I also thought he wasn't a dunk.
You mean the Morant? Here's
one.
Here's why I don't put it as the best dunk. It was delicate, like it was acrobatic, but it wasn't thunderous. It was placed through the net. Like it was very, very graceful and very athletic. But ultimately, for something to be the best dunk, I think you need some aggression, and it didn't have it. It was very dainty almost. So that's why it falls.
That's kind of how he does it, though, and I think he's trying to soften it up a little bit.
Some ridiculous things. So, like again, it was incredibly athletic, impressive, but no, for me, dunks need a little violence, and so that one didn't have it, and that it. So that's no, it does not reach.
We'll have to think. That'll be a good video for this week. Best dunks in Celtics games.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, that's my take on it, but it was impressive for sure. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. We do appreciate it. We will see everyone on Thursday. We'll have more stuff throughout the week, even before Thursday for sure. And you can always follow along.
The LeBron one. That's a good. That's a good one.
Yeah, Jaylen on LeBron or Tatum on LeBron?
No, LeBron. Well, yeah, Tatum on LeBron, and then LeBron on Terry, which is like his
or Jaylen
highlight.
on LeBron with the game blouses sort of hang afterwards was really good. But there's been some good ones. And like every Rob Williams alley-oop ever. But anyway, So I love those too. But again, Bobby Manning writing for CLNS Media. Check his stuff out. Check Noah out on Celtics blog. Also check out Noah's most recent article. Might not be the most recent, but about Jason Tatum and Deuce and the family atmosphere at the Garden. That's a good read as well. So check that out. And thank you guys again for hanging out with us. We will see you on Thursday.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way. Let's
Yeah.
slide Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke